So again, for people listening, we have Capri Catanzaro on. She is running for House District 21 in the state of Rhode Island under the Rhode Island Political Cooperative. It's a great organization. As a Rhode Islander myself, I've heard great things and talked to some leaders in the organization. They're doing amazing work for progressive causes in the state of Rhode Island and even around the country. So, Capri, thanks so much, first of all, for running against the establishment in Rhode Island. They've been controlling for too long. And, and thanks for your time today.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me. I definitely have been involved in this stuff for a long time. Since 2015, I started off, got energized by the Bernie Sanders campaign, actually, especially his ideas for healthcare for all. And that has been a centerpiece of why I decided to run this year. Specifically, it's about urgency. It's been a rough couple years with COVID, inflation. So right now, people really need help. They need the assistance, for instance, from the federal funds we got from the American Rescue Plan. You know, we were 43rd in the state to even start allocating that. So
Right.
I bring the urgency to the state house that is sorely lacking. That's why I decided to run right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. My question is to you, obviously there's the Medicaid expansion right now that's, helping people that are less fortunate. And, it's a good program that's not all around the country, only in 27 states. My question to you is, how would building on Medicaid, would you be building on Medicaid expansion? I guess I should frame it that way with, all these
So the way
different
that
health. Yeah,
the
good.
way that the Medicare for all single payer or ride-ship bill works is it raises everything to a Medicare standard of care. Now that's a good thing for providers and it's a good thing for people. It's also a good thing for pretty much businesses, municipalities as I described, but it's good because Medicaid doesn't have very good reimbursement rates and it's not it's not a very good model, I suppose, for providers. They would prefer to have Medicare patients as opposed to Medicaid patients or private insurance patients because those reimbursement rates are substandard. So what we do with Medicare is that what we do with RIDESHIP is we take everything to a Medicare standard of care and we actually raise some of the rates for specific services actually. And that's a really good model because it keeps the current I guess from the consumer, the patient perspective, it keeps that fairly consistent, but it makes the providers, it reimburses the providers at rates that are fair and equitable, I suppose. And that's a good thing because Medicare is Medicaid, as wonderful of a program as it is, it can be a real hassle, I suppose, for the providers because of
Yeah.
those reimbursement rates. So RIDESHIP is it's a solution that fixes a lot of the different issues in in the different parts of our healthcare system we have right now because it fixes things like low reimbursement rates. It fixes things like it might not cover Medicaid, only cover certain people. Medicare is only for people over a certain age. So it really does fix a lot of those holes and those gaps that our current system lacks. And that's all because we have a multiple insurance company, multi-payer system, and single payer. It simplifies it. It saves
Yeah.
money. It just makes it better for everybody.
So let me go at you with this, okay? Because this is where everything gets dicey. The question is you got a lot of establishment hacks in the state house still. Let's be real. And they are not for Medicare for all. I mean, we talk about the state, the Senate, the House, it doesn't
Well,
matter.
there are people that I talk to on the doors, like the Republicans, which may or may not be similar to the people that are elected as Democrats in this state. And I talk to them, and at first they may seem a little bit confused as to, well, what do you
You
mean? Why?
talking about people, sorry to interrupt you. Are you talking about people that you're meeting in work? Or are you talking
Oh,
about people in the
absolutely.
state
No,
house?
people in Warwick, they
But
are
I'm talking about in the state house that you have the
yes.
establishment hacks that are elected in there. They're not going to pass Medicare for all. I'm with you there. I'm for Medicare for all as you are.
But the
But
argument is about Medicare for all. Why is it that they will not pass it? Why is it that they
because
want
they're bought off.
we're paying more for less with our
But they're
current.
bought off though, Capri. They're bought off.
Sure, but the argument is that if we're trying to look at the from a financial perspective, Medicare for all, single payer, ride ship, whatever you'd like to call it, this is a financially good
I
model.
agree.
So using the financial perspective, we cannot afford to continue to maintain the multi-payer system that we have. We simply cannot afford to continue it. Maintaining this system is hurting people every single day. It's hurting our small businesses. It's hurting our municipalities. It's hurting, and in a sense, it's just hurting our state, because it's our state. We could have an amazing economy. We are a small state. We have a lot of really great businesses here. We have a lot of great people here. And because we're so small, we're the perfect state to start something like this, because it doesn't take what it would take, for instance, Texas, Florida, or California, because we have such a small population. So what I'm trying to say is we cannot afford to maintain our current system.
Well, can I push back and just,
it's about saving money.
Yeah.
It's not about anything else besides saving money and getting people what they need. And that's the kind of argument that is really hard for any elected official to tell their voters, that they don't want to save money, that they don't want them to have healthcare, that they don't want to do better. That's a very hard argument to share with your voters if you're an elected official. Nobody in my district is against this that I've spoken to. They all see it as a really good benefit. So I think it'd be hard for them to say no to it.
The thing is, then you spoke about Rhode Island trying this, and Rhode Island is the smallest state in the union, of course, as you alluded to. My question is, people will say, hey, Vermont did this, they didn't succeed. And what would be your answer for that? I'm just giving you the questions that people, whether they're Republicans, establishment, Dems, they're going to be pushing these propaganda points, and that's what they are in plain English, at you.
Well, Vermont is not Rhode Island. Vermont's plan is not Rhode Island's plan.
Fair enough.
Is not even close to what Vermont was trying to do. This plan for RIDESHIP, Rhode Island Comprehensive Health Insurance Program, this is a plan that fixes a lot of the problems that we've seen in other states or in other countries, where you tried to do a national insurance program or a local, if it's a province or a state. It fixes a lot of those issues that other places have seen it fail, I suppose. And RIDESHIP is not something that we are really new to, in a sense. For years, we've been organizing and adjusting and studying and researching. And this bill, the RIDESHIP bill, it's a very, very strong bill. We simply cannot afford to continue down the same road that we have been for years. It's simple money. Why are we spending 20% more on health insurance than we need to? Why are Rhode Islanders spending 20% more on health insurance than we need to? I would like any elected official to answer that question for me. Why do you let the insurance companies charge the rates that they do for prescriptions, for instance? Why is it that we allow the current system to continue, and every voter, every constituent, every resident here is spending 20% more on health insurance? Why are you letting that continue? That's my question to them.
Yeah. Now, hey, listen, I'm with you 100%. I wish there was more people like you making the argument for this. Hopefully there will be after this election. We'll see what happens. I do want to move on to some other points. I think we hammered that home, I guess I would say enough, but I agree with you. Now, RIDESHIP, just to finish this off, is a bill that's in Congress, a bill that's in the State House right now. Is that?
Well, I mean, they're recessed for the summer.
Right, but I mean,
it was introduced. Yeah, it was
next session, I'm saying.
Yep, David Morales and Sam Bell are I guess the sponsors of the bill. And RIDESHIP is, although I think it's about 90 pages long.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I have read the entire thing. I have gone through it. And, one of the things that I do, and this is why it's important, I think, to be an organizer, is by reading the bill and by having the connections and by talking to people, I am confident in the bill being a very strong bill, because I've talked to the people that work. I've talked to providers. I've talked to people that work in the industry. I've talked to people that are currently paying for their like they have Medicare and they're paying for the supplemental plans. I've spoken with organizations that are supportive of, like, direct support professionals, for instance, and like all of the different workers that I guess support the system. So, the RIDESHIP bill, it is a very, very strong bill because we did our homework. And by doing our homework, I don't mean that we spoke with lobbyists. We spoke with the people that know these issues the most.
The Pawtucket Red Sox, and I know you were involved with this, they did leave the state, leaving a very vacant space of a stadium there. I know there's talks about the soccer stadium going in Pawtucket, and that'll bring jobs back. I know you're not representing Pawtucket, but this could, run into the legislature on funding issues and with that. What is your take on the soccer stadium? And I know you were, like I said, working against them building that stadium, which I agree with you with in Providence, because that stadium is totally fine still to this day in Pawtucket. What is your take on the soccer issue? And was there, could we have kept the Pawtucket Red Sox in that stadium, or was that just totally out unless that stadium was built?
I'm not the owner of the Pawtucket Red Sox. It was not up to me whether or
Mhm.
not I chose to stay in the state or whether or not I chose to move elsewhere. So
Fair.
that's not my decision. But what I have to say about what the issues are right now, the current issues, where I am in Warwick, nobody is concerned about a soccer stadium right now. What they're concerned about is the fact that their wages are not high enough to support the inflation that's happening here, that COVID had a serious impact on their day-to-day life in terms of making ends meet and taking care of their family members. Those are the kinds of issues that people are really really wanting work to be done on right now. I don't hear anything like that when I talk to people here.
Fair enough.
Right now, I'm running out of urgency because we have federal funds that need to be used. They need to be used wisely and efficiently, but they need to be used quickly because people need assistance right now. I don't think a soccer stadium is the big thing right now. I mean, maybe ask me again in a year or two, but that is definitely not what's on people's minds right now.
Fine, let's talk about your platform. So talk about your platform, and I do want to get into the houseless issue because that's growing in the whole state of Rhode Island, Warwick on down.
Of course, yes, definitely. We do have, unfortunately, a fairly large unhoused population. And on top of that, we also have a very, very, I guess, old and not sufficient housing stock in the state. My mother's a
Right.
realtor. So, one of the things that you need to know going into wanting to purchase a new home is that you need to expect to make 5 to 10 offers that are complete that you're just rejected. They that you can make over asking price. You can ask 5, 10, 15, you can $25,000 over asking price, and you could still be rejected. Now, this is because this is causing house prices to like skyrocket, but it also means that you need to be very, very, very well off in order to afford any of the homes that are being sold today. So we need to do something about that. We need affordable housing. We need to build more units. The standard is, I guess, start with 10,000 new units. And that's just the beginning. Doing that would building new housing, 10,000 new units. That would provide jobs, good union paying jobs. It would provide an influx of homes into the market, which would help drive prices down because supply and demand. And it's just the right thing to do for our state economically and to keep people in our state. We have a lot of great colleges and universities here.
Right.
Why would we want those people to look at Rhode Island and see a very unappealing and unwelcoming state? We should have a very strong economy. We should have enough housing that people can afford. We should be trying to encourage people to stay here, to encourage people to start their lives here and raise their kids here. And we can do that only if they can physically live here. Housing is a very serious issue. We have federal funds that we could use to work on this issue. It's not just something that we need to figure out our state budget, I guess. We can use federal funds to do this as well. And especially the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan funds. Part of that was supposed to be for housing. And I know that there were some investments, but we need to continue and we need to use at least 10,000 homes as a benchmark for immediate work right now.
So obviously the airport is in Warwick. There's been a lot of work being done to extend the runway, talks about that, bringing new airlines in.
Every
Obviously,
day I hear people tell me about, there's air freight, for instance, curfews about what times they should be able to be flying around.
right.
The pollution, for instance, environmentally, that's also been a thing. The airport is a thing that people have mentioned to me. I mean, not only because it's basically our backyards are like the tarmac here, but
Oh, wow.
well, in Hoxie at least, but not
Okay.
only because of that, but it's not just if you're right next to it. It's also if you are just outside of the radius for where the sound, I guess the sound pollution happens.
Yeah.
Normally, or I guess when it was first built and when they first put in this law, it was you have to have central AC with it's like the doors and windows and everything are soundproofed. So that was kind of paid for. But the radius of where that stopped, it's kind of not, it doesn't work, I guess,
Mhm.
nowadays, because we've seen a lot of expansion. We've seen a lot more. I mean, even the planes themselves are different. So the sound definitely travels way further than it used to. And I really want to look into what we can do for on the state level again, and maybe even municipally to get, that central AC and that soundproofing in homes that are just outside. I mean, there are some streets where one side of the street has it and then the other side doesn't. And
Wow.
everybody here knows that those where that radius is, where that line is, it doesn't work for us. Everybody knows that. So that's actually something that I do want to look into, because I mean, people have had to spend their own money to to solve these sound problems. And there should be more done for noise abatement, for all the money and all the effort and all the time that we spend trying to increase the tourism and work on expanding the airport. Well, we also need to look at the consequences of doing that and make sure that the people living around here are supported in terms of, central AC, that noise abatement, all of that. I
Mhm.
don't think that those things have been going hand in hand in the past, but in the future, they definitely need to, because you can't have one without the other.
How do you navigate that? Because they're going to say the airport brings in tons of business as far as people traveling. A lot of people in Massachusetts coming to TF Green because they don't want to through Logan because it's like hell getting in and out
Well,
of that airport.
the
Go
first
ahead.
thing is the air freight. The air freight is something that's different. It's not the traveling necessarily. It's
Okay.
the air freight is like the deliveries and whatnot. So, but anyways, the air freight is the thing that should have a curfew. So that's something that I don't see why that would have a financial
Sure.
concern. That's something that I think just needs to be, I guess, addressed and maybe pushed forward a little stronger. I'm not sure that anybody is really doing anything on it right now, but
Hmm.
that's something that I plan to work on. And in terms of the economy, or I guess the tourism that the airport provides, well, that's all great, but the airport is no beach.
Right.
This is not something that people benefit from living near. So okay, it provides economic benefits, but we also need to look at the fact that it does have its consequences. So we need to look at both sides of it, and we need to make sure that the people that live here are not at it's not at their expense that that we see better tourism or other economic benefits. It shouldn't be at the residents' expenses.
So, Capri, let's get back into this. So, you've been truly amazing so far. I know a lot of the listeners that are listening really like your politics, as do I. We're in the same wavelength as all that goes. So, let's kick this around and end the interview with just talking about Warwick issues. Now, we did talk about the airport. You really went in depth on this. I want to talk about a favorite place of mine to go in Warwick is Oakland Beach. I know you taught over there. I do want to talk about school issues comparing to COVID and just school issues in general. But let's start with Oakland Beach as we end the interview. Speaking about that issue area, it is, pretty hopping in the summer. Obviously, a lot of these restaurants closed down because of the snow and the ice and everything else in the kitchen sink for the winter. Can you talk about that area since you're very familiar with that area and being in that area and how we can keep that economic development in that area as far as the beach area goes?
Oakland Beach is not in my district, but it is in
Oh, it is.
Senator Jeanine Calkin's district, who I worked. I managed her campaign initially in 2016.
Right.
So yes,
Great.
I am familiar with that area. And I think Oakland Beach, it's not so much different than a lot of our other, I guess, small local business hubs in Warwick, like we have on West Shore Road. And I think that the best way that we can work to help these businesses and keep these businesses and these communities thriving is to look at what has worked. Now, what has worked is working with local business owners and talking to them. When you talk to local business owners, they'll explain to you exactly what it is that they are struggling with and what they are needing. What I see on the state level a lot is they assume that small businesses need this or local businesses need this, and things like the minimum wage, for instance, they always assume that it's going to hurt a small business. The things that are hurting a small business right now is lack of access to capital, which can be very, very easily solved in many cases because the government has federal programs, federal loan programs, capital access programs. Now, bringing those capital access programs directly to the small businesses, and that doesn't mean sending out a mailer or having a commercial. It means having a workshop. It means sitting down with these people and telling them, this is how you do debt to equity. This is how you fill out all of these forms. This is how you put together your P&L and your balance sheet. It's all of these things that you're working with these small businesses to get access to these resources so that they can get that capital. And when they have that capital, they can expand, they can do more, they can succeed. And I think that we need to do a much better job bringing the resources that are federally or even state resources to the businesses that need it the most. And really, that just comes from talking with them, sitting down, having those in-person workshops. I'd love to see that. And I know there's plenty of businesses out there that they struggle with, especially the corporate minimum tax. That is something that I want to get rid of immediately. That is something that is not benefiting us. What would benefit us is a progressive style tax system so that, yes, there's a corporate tax, but the lower the income, the lower the tax. That's how our income tax works, obviously. So I think that would be a much better model, and it would encourage, or it would I guess it would make the larger and more wealthy corporations pay their fair share, but it wouldn't stifle the small businesses, which this current one, people come up with the idea of, let's make it $25 less, let's make it $100 less. Just get rid of it. It doesn't really help us.
Right. No, I agree 100%. I want to go into education and our last subject before we get ready to close. Speaking about education, you have a lot of experience in that field. I was a former teacher in the state of Florida, but I subbed up here in Pawtucket at a Catholic school, St. Cecilia. But regardless of that, with experience in the school system, a lot of teachers get paid, pretty good as far as this state. I mean, you go down to Florida, it's listen, you go down to Florida, it's pretty horrendous down there in this southern state. So, but besides the point, going into teaching and education in general, you've talked to teachers, you're friends with teachers, you worked in the profession. What can we do to make sure that the education is not only better for the kids, but also for the teachers? And also, if you can even hop on in that answer to vocational schools. That's something that is not being pushed by the legislature in general, and by our state elected officials in general. And
That
we
has
need
to
to
be
get these
the
programs
number
going.
one issue. I swear, on the door is the number one issue, especially, well, obviously it's healthcare, I guess, but when it comes to
Sure.
education, every single person says something about vocational schools. And basically, the way I see all of these issues, they all are intertwined. So this is towards the end of the interview. I'm going to give kind of, I guess, a wrap up. So
Sure.
with education, that's the beginning. So first, we need to do a constitutional amendment. The constitutional amendment will guarantee every child the right to a quality education. The reason quality is so important is because it makes sure that we do not have completely disparate schools in different districts. Now, part of schools is preparing for college and the workforce, and that's where vocational schools, for instance, can come in. And that's something that we definitely, I know the people here would like it. I know that the legislature they're not unfamiliar with this, but even school, different school committees and whatnot, they like the idea of trying to add in the vocational aspect to either high school or even the to transition from high school into college, or just having the vocational schools separately. Either way, having that pipeline, I suppose, starting from a good quality education, no matter where you are, no matter your zip code, that's what the constitutional amendment, and that can go right into the college and the vocational schools, university, whatever higher education. And then we need to look at housing, because once we have a good educational system set up, they need to stay here. We want them in this state. That's where housing comes in. That's why we got to build more units. That's why we need to work on making housing inclusionary zoning, for instance. Housing should not be just segregated into this is where a bunch of poor people live. That's not right. That's exactly how a lot of housing has been built in the history of this country and the history of Rhode Island. Inclusionary zoning is a great way that we can continue that. And when we invest in housing, we need to make sure that we continue to build strong communities. And on top of strong communities is strong businesses. That's local businesses. So with local businesses, we want to get rid of that corporate minimum tax. That's ridiculous. Also, we want to work on bringing them the resources from the federal and the state level, bringing it straight to them with workshops for capital access programs so that they have working capital, and working with single payer healthcare or rideship. That's going to help be able to compete in the market. It's very difficult for small businesses and local businesses to compete and hire or offer good paying jobs with benefits if they can't afford the expensive health insurance programs. So rideship would make it much cheaper, much more affordable. They can finally compete very well with the larger corporations. And, that's why rideship is so crucial for businesses and the everyday person as well. So I think that all of those things, it starts with education, it moves more into housing. And then it's very clear how healthcare and rideship really just ties everything together, because especially if you're in school, I've worked in the schools. If kids are not getting the things they need for healthcare, for instance, if they don't have that, if their parents don't have that, then they're not going to be doing very well, are they? And then in the workplace, if you don't have the health insurance that you need, then you're not going to be able to, I guess, I don't know, pay for anything. You'll be covered with bills. I mean, it'll just be it's not ideal. And you're going to have to look for a job that has really, really good health benefits, and usually that's going to be out of the state. So we can really strengthen our state by strengthening our schools. Vocational schools are a great thing that we should be working on more, and I plan to work on that in the legislature. And then from schools into businesses and the workforce, and the thing that ties it all together really is healthcare, because that saves everybody. It saves everybody money, and it makes our state look much more attractive to recent grads to want to stay.
Let me ask you this question before we end. If a person is a teacher and they have student loans, or if they're going into a profession in general that's needed in the state, would you try to push for something to say, hey, if you go into teaching, if you go into this field and that field that's needed by a lot of Rhode Islanders, we're going to cancel your student
Absolutely. In
debt?
the state budget this year, or in this year's budget, I think it was about $500,000 that was allocated toward basically supporting new educators, or getting new educators certified and whatnot. And $500,000 is not enough. First of all, we should just cancel student debt on a federal level, but we need to include more incentives on the state level, because we actually need more than just teachers. We also need more nurses and more healthcare staff, and that can be done. We have URI. We can make investments in URI so that we can train more people and incentivize that kind of that field, I suppose, in both healthcare and education. So I definitely support that, and I definitely think that student loans, they should be just. I think that the federal government can deal with that, but we can still do a lot on the state level to prevent more student loans by making public colleges like URI and RIC and CCRI, making them free, and having the programs that we need to train the people that we need to fulfill all of the workforce, all of the positions in the workforce, for schools, for hospitals, for the all of the things that we're lacking right now.
I agree. And, Rick is a teaching school. URI has good education, many other good programs. Let's do it. Let's end it there. Again, Capri, my last thing I want you to tell the viewers is just where they can help you out, whether they're in Rhode Island, even if they're in Massachusetts,
Absolutely.
another state, just
Yep.
let them know.
I have actually have quite a few people that are from out of state that are
Well,
really excited about this campaign. They've known me for a while, and they're going to come out on this Saturday. We're actually doing a really big event with a bunch of Warwick candidates, including Jennifer Rourke and Senator Jeanine
mhm.
Calkin, which are very dear to my heart because I've known them for years. And that's going to be this Saturday in Warwick. You can find it. It's on my website and on Facebook. There's an event for that next weekend. Next Saturday, I have another event, but reach out. I have a website, I have a Twitter, I have Instagram, I have everything. Give me a call, 238-2416, 238-2416. Text me, email me. There are so many opportunities. I go canvassing every single day. That's part of the reason I wanted to end this kind of early because I have to get back out in the doors. But I do need your help. You can also donate at capri4ri.com, capri4ri.com. And once again, give me a call. I'd love to talk about issues. 238-2416. Obviously, area code 401.
Capri, you're amazing. I'm so happy we did this interview. I heard a lot of good things about you through some people in Rhode Island. They said you got to check this girl out. She's a star in Rhode Island. I said let's do this, and you didn't let me down. You crushed this. So capri4ri.com. Definitely check you out. Capri Catanzaro. Thanks so much. You're amazing. Keep up the amazing work, and I hope to help you out. And I hope many people listening to this, whether it's on the YouTube or on the radio or on the podcasting site, do also, whether it's a donation or door-to-door issues. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, and let's win this.